So what I wanted to do really quick as part of this test is talk about Eric Weinstein and his talk on Jeffrey Epstein. Now, Eric Weinstein is somebody I will admit, I am a fangirl of Eric Weinstein. I am very hard to impress in terms of celebrity, status, wealth, all of that. I've been inside of rooms that have access to people, and I have had access to people, whether it was like underground, like music scenes, high, like religious organizations, politicians, celebrities. I don't care, right? And I think that's why I've been granted access in those rooms, and also why I have faced so much resistance from getting to where I'm about to go in life. Just like many of you, right? So those of us who have overcome these things, these resistances in life, so that way we can help affect change in society. We have certain people who have inspired us, and Eric Weinstein, for me, is one of those people. So if I am ever honored to sit down and have a conversation with him, I'm gonna fangirl out, and I might need some help. But he 5 years ago in 2020, he had this podcast called The Portal. Eric Weinstein is a scientist, a physicist, and this one video is so beautiful because it really shows, has so much information. It opens with a reflection about why he was scared to come forward and publicly to tell his story with Jeffrey Epstein. And it really touches upon the fear that we have been conditioned to feel for speaking up, speaking truth, and also the shadow work that is required to heal our inner child, to be there for ourselves when no one was there for us. It's very beautiful and poignant. And then further into the video, he goes into speaking about, he describes his meeting with Jeffrey Epstein, but throughout, which is crazy. It's crazy. And but then throughout the video, he also explains different models or techniques that you can use to responsibly conspiracy theorize. And I've used these, and it has helped keep me out of getting too far off when looking at all of the conspiracies that are present, and to be as balanced as I have been, considering the circumstances that I found myself in. I mean, you can look back at a couple of the videos that I made about the Roman Catholic Church and some of the information there. That took a lot for me to do. And each time I think about Eric and what he did. So in this way, I'm sharing this because, one, it might be useful to you in your own journey. And two, we need to be inspired in order to overcome this fear that we have been conditioned to feel. And hopefully, his words, I will only share a little bit of this, but hopefully his words will inspire you to, if not act, then at least more deeply reflect upon the situations that you found yourself in, and the actions that you may be able to take in order to stand up for justice to help other people. I also believe that moving into this, the next, I just heard 27 years, we are going to have scientists working with very specific types of psychics or channelers like myself, not people who are pretending to be like us, with very specific profiles, and along with investigators, sleuths, people. We are all going to make up these 3-letter agencies that, and politicians, because one thing that really bothers me is when people say that all politicians are corrupt, or all people in these 3-letter agencies are in bed with the evil people, because they're not. They need our support throughout this transition. a lot of these systems will be brought down, but most of them are going to just be restructured. So it is in this restructuring that we're all going to come in and work together. So this is the very starting point of this. So yeah, let me bring on the video of Eric. I will link the full video down below. And if he or his people, I don't know, have a problem with me doing this, I will gladly take down the stream. Please do not strike me. I do not want that. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to share this. Okay. I wonder, am I sharing the whole thing? Hold on. What do you see there? I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. So, okay, so at least it's this profile. All right, so let's just listen. So this opens, the video opens with a reflection.
Hello, this is Eric with a few notes on today's release. This was recorded over half a year ago, and I've sat on it because I didn't want to release it. I had hoped that the story it discusses would have been followed up by others, as I never wanted to be entangled with it. Instead, that story has barely moved. For some reason, there is no one capable within the world of institutional media or government of moving this enormous story forward despite worldwide interest. I've elsewhere named that unseen force the DISC, or Distributed Idea Suppression Complex. What I see when watching this video of the episode in question is a frightened 53-year-old man in an unscripted and perhaps occasionally rambling hour of discussion of Jeffrey Epstein.
Okay, so what he's doing here, this is just a little it's a prologue of his video. So he's describing what he saw when he's watching himself speak. And what a moment this must have been for him in terms of his healing. Yeah, it just moves me so much.
He doesn't exactly know how to say what he has got to get across, but perhaps that is because he isn't simply a middle-aged man at all. When I look closer, I see a terrified 10 or 11-year-old boy who many years ago was sent to a therapist. Why was that child so terrified of going to see a therapist, you may ask? Well, because of inappropriate events set in motion by the therapist's behavior at the first of their 2 meetings. That, however, was not what caused the lasting terror. Despite the therapist being a trained and established authority figure, and the boy being a minor, it was possible for the boy to simply and firmly say, "No, I do not want that. You must stop." Thus, the boy is not a survivor. He was not a victim. And he did not want a random broken person to be integrated into his life story. Today, the man in that chair addressing the camera is simply the man that became of an unlucky boy who was sent to see a professionally licensed therapist who crossed his path. What was terrifying instead was that when I explained that I did not ever wish to go back to that cursed office, I was forced against my will, and with a good amount of screaming and terror, I might add, to go again for a second meeting. At that second meeting, I was intimidated by the failed and inappropriate therapist who was obviously himself terrified.
So right here, there's 1,000 things, right, that come to my mind as reflecting upon my own experience as a child and going through the school district and everything that they needed me to be. And back then, ADHD was not really a thing. And forget ASD or sensory processing disorder. But unfortunately, what he's describing, in my mind, the first thing I think of is today's public school systems. And regardless of all the information that we currently have, like how children are being conditioned in this way to feel as though, that they're wrong for, their natural biological and physiological responses to situations where they're being dehumanized, devalued, and stripped of their own identity and free will. And this is the beginning of the conditioning. Yeah.
Being forced back into such a dark office alone as a boy to be berated, threatened, and shamed by an out-of-control representative of the world of institutional authority alerted me to just how badly outgunned the individual is when confronted by the terrifying reality of institutional actors attempting to silence a lone voice. Why would no one listen to the boy when he told them what had happened? Why wouldn't anyone adult, powerful, and credentialed speak up for that child and his right to be free of the supposed therapy and therapist? Could no one see the terror in the child's eyes? Why simply because 2 sessions had been booked did he need to continue with this random therapist who was clearly a damaged soul and one who needed real therapy much more than the boy?
And that experience too. I mean, the state of the mental health system at this point, it is sad to say the least. And this is why we need more and more healers coming forward. The real healers, not the ones who will just take your money and just do a little bit of this and pretend that they're giving you Reiki. No. The ones who really get into it, the ones who can become like they're actually like fairies, right? Real healers, right? Because we really need to move away from this mental health system that we have, the institution of this mental health system. It's not helpful. And it's just a pipeline for medication. And I have a lot of thoughts about that as well.
Episode is ultimately about the world of institutions, the institutions of journalism that will regulate reputation, but who will generally not ask comparable questions of other institutions, the institutions of the intelligence world, which owe us information as to what is known about Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and their operation, the institutions of government that will not hold.
Keep in mind, he recorded this in 2020.
Hearings into out-of-control intelligence activities as we did in the 1970s, and the institutions of technology, which track our every move and know all our secrets, yet cannot locate a single individual, like Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice, who completely improbably seems to have vanished from the face of the earth as of March 2020.
When he died.
But just as this episode is about institutions, it is also about individuals and the various ways that they are made vulnerable to institutional objectives. Because every individual may be destroyed at will by the same complex of institutions that are themselves deciding not to act with vigor in policing each other, we are all at risk when we deviate from their scripts and expect structural change. Mm-hmm. Thus, the act of pointing out the absurdity of the story is in fact terrifying, which gets to the questions raised by the young boy in our story. Why will no one listen to me when I say I do not ever wish to encounter the monster or the official class he represents ever again? Why must I go back to the same institutions that harm me? Why does a child's evident terror mean nothing to any adult nor any institution at all? Why can we not talk openly about the risks to the individuals from the expert and authority classes when we have a conflict between them? As it happens, analogs of all of those personal questions are now being asked in hushed tones about Jeffrey Epstein and the bizarre institutional response to his story. Why are we not expending resources to figure out what giant structure we apparently just tripped over? Are we really going to sit here and not ask whether this was a protected or state-sponsored pedophile running some kind of intelligence operation to control people in positions of power, wealth, and influence?
Are we?
Are we okay with the idea that we aren't even asking on-the-record questions about whether our intelligence communities traffic in underage minors, some as young as 12 years of age? Well, I have an answer for that boy. One day, you will become a man and you will fear loss in the battle between the flawed and vulnerable individual that all adults eventually become, and the amoral institutional world who continues to hold most of the best cards. You will learn the story of Gene Seberg, and that alone will change your life. You will not know to whom you can turn. You will come to believe that there is no news media, nor justice system, nor social movement, nor representative government that truly cares about protecting minors in real terms when institutional power, money, secrecy, and sex are all woven together. You will become part of the problem by remaining silent for a while to cope with your fears. That is, unless you are able to overcome them, to clear your throat and finally say, you know what, I refuse to continue to be part of this charade in this way anymore. I have always felt Jeffrey Epstein was a construct, and I now fear that he was a state-sponsored pedophile protected by governments. And I have kept quiet too long, partially out of fear that the trail could lead to either or both of the two nations I love most in this world. I'm not really here for myself, and I've been avoiding this. And perhaps at least directly, I'm not even mostly here for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and his organization. I am at last really here selfishly for a young boy long gone, who I abandoned to prove to him that it was actually possible at personal risk to stand up for children and against the system. These young girls are no less deserving, of course, but I don't know any of them personally, so I will stick to the issue that animates me, the individual standing against the institutions who would crush him or her. So to that long dead and previously abandoned former self, let me just say this. Sorry I'm a little late, kid. I became afraid that the imperfections of what I'm about to say next could derange my adult life and make me vulnerable to those who will destroy anything and anyone who threatens them using everything at their disposal. I apologize for my cowardice. It is one of many character flaws that I am working to correct. But you as a boy did nothing wrong, and it will be a pleasure to stand up for you come what may. You're a solid kid who didn't deserve this, and I think you deserve a better champion, but Jesus wasn't available, so you got me instead. Let's do this thing. I know this is crazy, but I think that there's even a remote chance we can take these guys. We can at least try and go down swinging. Let's just release it, flaws and all, and hope that the world is more kind than its failing institutions.
Amen.
With that said, stay tuned. Please be a little bit forgiving and enjoy the episode.
Hello, you found the portal. I think this is going to be a little bit of an unusual episode because it's going.
So let's see. Maybe I'll fast forward to the time where he meets Jeffrey. Now, just replay that or go directly to the video and watch the whole thing, because that is such a beautiful reflection that if I was in charge of spirituality, I would sit every single stupid reader and channeler that has not done their shadow work. I would sit them down and make them listen to that over and over again to the point where they could recite it. So that way maybe they could do a little bit of the shadow work that they so desperately need to. We have no business helping other people if we cannot learn to heal ourselves.
In the 1980s and 1990s, I became very active in believing that the so-called STEM shortage of scientists and engineers that was claimed.
Okay, so all right, so he's a scientist, he's a physicist, right? What the connections that he put together in terms of Ghislaine Maxwell's father, and the whole peer-reviewed journal situation as it relates to Jeffrey Epstein's interest in science, incredible. So I would, if you're looking for to understand the Epstein files, I would start here with the portal, with episode 25 of the portal, which is interesting. 7, very karmic. Then I would go to, on Netflix, it's called Born Rich, and they have documentaries, Born Rich documentaries on, or I think Jeffrey Epstein's is Born Rich, and then there's one for Ghislaine Maxwell, and it goes into her father too, I believe. Watch those. I think those are about 4 hours each. There's 4 different episodes each, I think, for them, and then I think between all of that, you really have an understanding of at least partially where we're going with this. What I feel called to is partially trying to get at least the portion of society that I can get you guys ready, us ready together collectively, because when everything starts rolling out, when we start seeing all the different segments of society that this is actually touching, it's going to be traumatic, okay? And how affected so many of us are by these different rings. Now, I'm not saying that everybody was some sort of sacrifice, but you could be connected to people who are actually, I don't know. I don't want to say too much, right? Because I don't have any information necessarily, but I think that at least many of us who are called to step into new roles in this new time have taken a lot of time. We were on the inside of some of these institutions, which were most likely involved with some of this movement of people placed through different places for different ends and goals, whether it was just pure energy harvesting, other types of blood magic, or things like that. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you enjoyed it. How long? 20 minutes? Yeah. Go watch The Portal with Eric. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed him as much as I do. And definitely take a look at his different techniques for responsible conspiracy theorizing, because we're all going to need that very soon, if not already. God bless.